What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from from Zero back with another Retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, and in this video I'm going to be going over another Warrior format deck. Although looking at this deck, it may not seem like it because this is very similar to Goat Control from Goat format. The deck is very similar in style. Basically, you're trying to, bring out Thousand Eyes Restrict with things like Metamorphosis and Scapegoat. Now, that's not the only thing you're bringing out. You can also bring out your other fusion monsters by triggering off things like, Air Knight Parshath or Thunder Dragon, or even, a monster that you bring out off of Scientist. You can then tribute it off for Metamorphosis and bring out another copy of it. So there's a lot of different things that you can do in this deck that make it very flexible in Warrior format. And I think it's a really cool deck here. Now, there are some notable differences between this deck and the deck in Goat that just stem from like what you can't actually do in Warrior format that you can in Goat. Namely, there's a rule change that takes place between Warrior format and Goat format, where basically monsters that have their battle positions changed by an effect cannot then be manually changed later in that turn. So what do I mean by that? Basically, I mean, if you have a Thousand Eyes Restrict that's in face-up attack position, and you summon out a Tsukiyomi to flip it down to face-down defense position, the battle position of that card has changed by an effect. So you can't then manually flip summon up that Thousand Eyes Restrict and then change its battle position again later in the turn. Now, it's important to note that the reverse of that isn't true. If you manually change the battle position of a card during your turn, you can then change it with an effect. Like, effects can always change battle positions. But it is very important to know that you can't actually do the reverse in this format. So you can't do the Souk loop that's very famous in Goat format. So you've got to get a bit creative with how you use your cards. And one of the ways that you can actually use Thousand Eyes Restrict is by tributing it off for something like an Air Knight Parshath, or even a Dark Magician of Chaos, or a Thunder Dragon. That's why we're playing all these cards in the deck, because sometimes they're the only way that you can really shut off your Thousand Eyes Restrict, and sometimes you really do want to shut off your Thousand Eyes Restrict. So it's important to keep that sort of change in mind. But with that in mind, let's go through the card by card and talk about why I put in what I did. Now, this list is heavily inspired by some things that I've been seeing in the latest Warrior format tournament. It's not anyone's deck list as far as I know. I think everyone else is doing different things. But I saw some interesting things that people were playing, and I decided to try it out for myself. So going through the card by card, we got the Air Knight Parshath here. This card's fallen out of favor in Goat format. In this version of the deck there. But I do think it is pretty good here, because again, you need ways to shut off your Thousand Eyes Restrict. It's a level 5, which is a great Metamorphosis number, because you can go into things like Dark Pulse with Terrible, which is very strong. And it's just a very good card all around, getting you draws. And if your opponent is playing things like, Scapegoat, then it's very good in that regard as well. We've also got BLS. BLS, very powerful in this format. And you've got a ton of lights and darks, Air Knight Parshath being one of them. Things like Grave for Your Spy, Scientist, etc. There's a lot of different lights and darks that you can use for BLS, so very good to include here. We got a Breaker as well. This can deal with your opponent's back row. It can be a beefy monster with 1900 attack before popping, 1600 attack after, so it's still very good in that regard. We have a Demok here. Demok is kind of interesting, as, it's a bit tricky to bring out. You also can't really meta it into anything, because there aren't any level 8 fusion monsters in this format that you can summon using Metamorphosis. But, the card is still very good at getting back a spell from Grave, which is very important. And you do have ways to facilitate it. Like, for instance, you've got these Gravekeeper Spies to get another spy from deck to set up multiple monsters to tribute for. If you've got Thousand Eyes Restrict up on field, and you'll probably be able to set up other monsters as well to tribute off both for your Demok to get back a powerful spell from Grave. So you generally do have access to ways to bring out Dark Magician Chaos. You can also use Scientist to get multiple fusion monsters on field, distribute off for that. Speaking of Scientist, Scientist is very good in this deck. It's a level 1 for Restrict, but also can bring out other fusion monsters as well. It does cost 1,000 life points per fusion monster you bring out, so that is very good to know. But oftentimes, you can use this for a game-winning push, which is very strong. We also got these Spies, as I mentioned earlier. This gets out Darks from deck, which is very nice. You can also wall up a bit and provide tribute fodder for your variety of tribute monsters in the deck. We've also got Triple Magician of Faith, and Magician of Faith is a very powerful flip monster that it can also serve as a Thousand Eyes Restrict sort of Metamorphosis target. We've also got Sinister Serpent. This is the main monster you want to be using for your Metamorphosis here, as going to this off Sinister gets you back your resource later, so that's very good, and it's essential to the deck. We've also got triple Thunder Dragon. Thunder Dragon may seem a bit weird, a bit passive, because, all it really does is deck thin and then get you 2 more Thunder Dragons to hand. But I think this card is really, really strong. Deck thinning is very good in a deck like this to get into your combo pieces. Also, it's level 5, which can allow you to go into things like Dark Bolter or Fiend Skull Dragon. So it's very, very good in that regard as well. It can tribute over your 1,000 Item Strict, which is very, very important, as there are a lot of instances where you can't really clear your own 1,000 Item Strict in other means that easily. So that's why the Thunder Dragons are in here. It also serves as discard fodder because we have a variety of cards that do want to discard cards from hand in this deck. Speaking of that, Tribe Infecting Virus is in here as well. Very, very powerful card. If you're playing things like Thunder Dragon and Sinister Serpent, I think you kind of got to be playing Tribe. It's too powerful not to. Next up for the spells, we got Change of Heart, Confiscation. No surprise there. These are all very good. We've got Double Creature Swap, which can pair with our Scapegoat, to compare with our Sinister Serpent, and with a flipped up Magician of Faith. So I really like Creature Swap in this deck. It is kind of like, it does take some setup to actually get going well. But, I think it's powerful enough to be worth including anyways. We got a Heavy Storm here to clear away our opponent's back row. We've got Triple Metamorphosis here to go into our 1,000 Item Strict and other fusion monsters. We've got a Mystical Space Typhoon here to pop our opponent's back row as well. We have Painful Choice to set up our graveyard. We got Pot of Greed to draw deeper. We've got Premat to bring back a monster from grave. We get Triple Scapegoat to pair with our 1,000 Item Strict, also just to sort of form a defensive wall to combo with our Creature Swap. Scapegoat is very, very good in this deck. We've also got a Snatch Seal to take one of our opponent's monsters, a Force Sentry to rip a card out of their hand, send it back to deck. We got Upstart here to draw deeper into our deck. You could definitely not play Upstart in this sort of deck, but I think that because, it's more of a combo-oriented deck, having Upstart here is very good. And also it's a much more controlling deck, so, you don't really care about giving your opponent the 1,000 because ideally you're going to be set up in a situation where your opponent really won't be able to do much. So that's why I like Upstart in this deck. We got to call the Haunter to bring back monsters from grave. We've got a Raigeki Break to pop cards that our opponent can have. We've got Ring of Destruction here to pop monsters and deal that last bit of damage. And we got a TT to wipe the board away. For the side deck is still kind of in a state of construction here. A couple cards are in here that I just wanted to experiment with in the deck, like Tsukiyomi and Triple Book of Moon. I didn't include these in the main version of the deck because, again, that battle position rule change really shuts down the sort of Suk lock with 1,000 Item Restrict. So I didn't really think it was worth including these in the main. But you are playing things like Magician of Faith, where if you flip something on your turn, you can then summon out Suk or set it back down with Book. So I do think that, these could have a place in the deck, and that's why they're here in the side. Book also pairs well with some other side deck cards like Nomen of Crossout, although if you're bringing Nomen of Crossout, your opponent should probably be on a flip-focused strategy, so you probably won't need the Book anyways. It also pairs with Royal Decree, because if you bring in Royal Decree, your traps will be a bit more dead, so you could potentially side in Books for things like Raigeki Break or something like that. For the other cards here, we've got Triple Pickeroo Circle of Enchantment. This is good against burn decks. We've got a Ceasefire here, which can be good against flip focus strategies. It can also be good against Chaos Return, because basically if they go for their return from the different dimension, they get a bunch of effect monsters on field. You go for Ceasefire and probably deal that last bit of damage to their life points. So very, very funny card to bring in against Return. Lastly, we've also got a Jinzo here, and we've got a Fiber Jar. Fiber Jar, I didn't include the main because I figured in a control-based strategy, you want to sort of be keeping the board presence that you've actually set up, and you don't necessarily want to go for a Fiber Jar to reset everything. But I do think there are some matchups where this can be good to bring in. In the mirror, it can be nice because you can reset your opponent's progress. So that's why it's here. Jinzo is here because in case we're up against a deck that values their traps a lot more, we can potentially bring this in over something like Air Knight Parshath to serve as our tribute monster there, but also to shut out our opponent's traps. So it's very, very good in that regard. For the fusion deck, we've got sort of like a toolboxy fusion deck. I put in every card that I think could come up, but, because this is an unlimited fusion deck format, just like GOAT, you should have access to like 3 of all these cards, and a lot of them are here just to serve as reminders. And if we need more copies of them, we can always proxy them in. So the main ones that you'll be going into are Dark Bolter the Terrible for level 5s. This is very, very good. It shuts down monster effects, and also it negates normal spells when they're activated. So very, very powerful if you can bring this out. We got Dark Blade the Dragon Knight, which is the fusion monster with the highest amount of attack in the format, 2200 attack. Dark Flare Knight also exists, but it didn't really have as good an effect. The effect of Dark Blade Knight allows you to banish 3 monsters from your opponent's grave when it inflicts battle damage, so it's like a Kaiku, and that is very, very powerful against a lot of Chaos decks. We've also got Dark Fire Dragon and Dragon to the Wicked Knight, mainly here for, level shenanigans. You could also play Flame Ghost instead of Dragoness if you want a Dark level 3 fusion monster. But again, you can always proc that in if you want to. We got Fiend Skull Dragon here, which shuts down flip effects and also traps the target, which is very powerful because, as you can see, we got 4 traps in our deck that do target, but there are also others like Sakuretsu Armor and the like. So Fiend Skull Dragon, very, very good. We got Guilty of the D-Knight, which is a level 5 light monster. So, you can bring out a light off scientist like that, and it's very good. We've got an Ojama King here, level 6 light, shuts down your opponent's Rose, and also 3,000 defense is nothing to scoff at. We've got a Reaper on the Nightmare to potentially rip cards out of our opponent's hand, can attack directly, can't be destroyed as a result of battle, and rips card out of the hand when it does successfully attack directly. We've got Ryu Sentry here to shut down our opponent's traps. Also shuts down spells that target, which, people aren't really playing too many spells that target in this format, but Snatch Steal and Change of Heart are both very powerful spells that do target, so if you are worried about those, then Ryu Sentry can be good to bring in. Also, it does stop Book from targeting it as well. We've got Super Robo Yara here. This probably will never come up. The only reason why I included it is because there are edge cases when you're playing decks playing like Messenger of Peace, where you can bring this out. It's 2200 attack in damage step, but it can indeed declare an attack under Messenger of Peace. Will very rarely come up, probably never really will. But I have it in the fusion deck here just in case. We've also got triple Thousand Eyes Restrict here to suck up our opponent's monsters. This is the main engine of our deck. This is what we're going into off things like Metamorphosis, and it's very, very good to have in the fusion deck. But that's going to do it for the list. I think this list is really good. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but I think this is a very, very good starting point. So let's dive into the games and see how it does. Okay, we got a game against Rago Drago here. A frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We're going to dive into the game. And we do win the rock, paper, scissors, so we will be going first here. And this is a really good opening hand. We draw Forceful, so we'll be able to shuffle something back into the deck. So we go for the Forceful. We see that they're on a Magician of Faith, a DD Warrior Lady, a Metamorphosis, a Change of Heart, and a Sakuretsu Armor. That's a bit tricky. I think of those, we probably want to send the DD Warrior Lady because we've got ways to deal with Magician of Faith with things like Scientists, bringing out like a Dark Bolter to hit over it. We can deal with Warrior Lady the same way, I guess. So maybe I should have sent back the Faith, because Faith also can get them into a 1,000 Eyes Restrict. But they've got Change of Heart to take our monsters anyways, so yeah, I don't know. It's a bit tricky here. I think I might have made the wrong choice there, but, I've got Heavy to clear Saku, which is why I didn't send back the Saku, but we're going to set this Scapegoat here, pass back to them. And they're going to bring out a Tribe, so that's kind of unfortunate. They're going to attack in. We can't use the Scapegoat here, but it won't be effective against Tribe. We could use it in end phase, but the awkward thing about using an end phase is that then the next play that we want to do is bring out Scientist here and bring out like Dark Bolter or something to hit over the Tribe Infecting Virus. So, we can't do that when we've got 4 zones clogged up by Scapegoat. So we can't go for that. We draw a Spy, which is very good, but we do need to clear that Tribe right now. We're going to pay 1,000, and we're going to think, we check that Saku does target, and it does indeed. So we're going to bring out Fiend Skull Dragon, attack over that Tribe, and then we'll attack directly with the Scientist, because if they use Saku on Scientist, I feel like that's a reasonable trade. And I can save the Heavy for later in that case. So our opponent is just going to pass back to us, and that's pretty good, but it's a little bit awkward here, given what their hand is, because ideally what we'd want to do is, like, bring out Parshath, get in for 19, but, we do know about Change of Heart, and we do know about meta. So our opponent can Change of Heart the Parshath, go into something like a, Dark Bolter in the follow-up, and Parshath did not play well with our Scapegoat. So it's a bit awkward here. I'm going to think about this for quite a bit, and I will just pay 1,000 and bring out a, I could bring out a Dark here, and then tribute that off for Parshath, because Parshath did a light, but instead I'm just going to bring out this Ryu Sentry to stop the Saku. And then I'm going to tribute off the Scientist, attack in for 19. Draw a card, hope that it sort of gets me out of this situation. So we draw Thunder Dragon, which does set up a Light and Dark Engrave. So now we actually have another option that we could go here for here. We could potentially banish a Light and Dark, bring out BLS, and then banish our Parshath. So that way they can't take it, attack into our Scapegoat tokens. They can still take the BLS and then banish BLS with its own effect. But we have, like, Spy, we've got Goat. We've got sort of set up for later. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to do that. It is just very awkward, given our hand here. We also now don't have a way to deal with the Magician of Faith that's in hand, so that's awkward as well. Yeah, I think a long time about this because I do consider it as a valid option, but I think ultimately, we've got Scapegoat. Unfortunately, Scapegoat doesn't really deal with Parshat the best, but if they do take Parshat, that's just 1900 damage. They can't kill us here. So I fear we should ultimately be fine. We also have TT in case they want to summon out another monster here as well. And so they're going to bring out a Magician of Faith. Now, I interpret this as they're planning going for meta, and then, bring up Thousand Island Trick, sucking up the Parshath. But in hindsight, I should have realized that if they wanted to do that play, they would have set the Magician of Faith to prevent it from being like, Solemn Judgmented or something like that. So I should have realized that they were actually setting up for a creature swap play here instead. But I didn't realize this, and they're going to think about this. They go for creature swap, and also here I make another grave error. In response to the creature swap, I should have just fired Scapegoat, because what I could do in that case is I could just give them a goat token, and they could still go for meta, they could still go for change, things like that. But at least they wouldn't have the Parshath naturally from that swap. So this was a major misplay on my part. It might have been actually a game-losing misplay. But we'll have to see what happens in the future. They go for a meta here, bringing out a Dark Balter. We just TT that because we want to get aggressive next turn with our Black Legend Soldier. So we need a way to clear the Saku. And unfortunately, the Heavy Storm won't do that for us. In the end phase here, we are just going to go for the Goats. So that way we can use Heavy to clear out the Saku. But it's an ideal. We do indeed do that. We then banish a Light and a Dark from Grave to bring out a BLS here and attack in for 3k. So that will go through there, and we'll pass back to our opponent. And they're going to bring out Scientist, and actually this will be the end of the game here, even though it may not seem it. They're going to bring out 3 fusion monsters here, or 2 fusion monsters, I guess. Yeah, they only have the life points to pay for 2, and then they're going to change for our BLS. They've got 3 attacks off those monsters that they've got there, and then they've got another attack off the BLS. So, yeah, that will be the end of the game here. I think I did majorly misplay, but this is my first time playing the deck. So, yeah, misplays will happen. I do think over the course of this video, I do get a lot better at the deck, and I sort of figure out what I should be doing. But that game 1 was pretty rough. I think we definitely could have won it if I hadn't misplayed so badly. But it looks like our opponent is on the mirror or a form of this deck. So, that's good to know about. For the siding, I do think... Did I bring in the Nox here? I might not have brought in the Nox here for game 2, but I definitely bring in the Nox for game 3. But anyways, I set Scapegoat, I set Raigeki Break, and then I pass back to our opponent. I feel this is pretty good. We've got a creature swap to pair with the Scapegoat for next turn. We've also got meta to pair with the Scapegoat as well. So we got a pretty good setup going here. And our opponent's going to go for Forceful here. They'll be able to shuffle back something good. They're going to send back that meta. I think that makes a lot of sense, given that they know that we've got a lot of 5s in hand. So you want to shuffle back the meta because meta can pair with that. Whereas, they don't necessarily know that we've got Scapegoat set. So Swap won't necessarily be able to pair with anything. But unfortunately for them, it will be able to pair with these Goats. We're going to bring out those Goats. And our opponent is going to not attack into them. I think that makes sense because they want to clog up our zones a little bit. But we go for MST because we want to sort of clear the back row in case they've got TT. We've got Raigeki Break to clear the other back row as well, so we can sort of, wipe out their defenses and then go in for a Parshath push. But it's a TT there, so actually I don't really feel the need to go for the other back row with Break now. I was planning on doing that if we didn't hit TT the first time we did MST there, but, now I don't need to, so that's very nice. Sometimes you get lucky like that. We tribute off the DD Whirly that we swapped there for a Parshath here, trying to attack into the token. Unfortunately, they've got Ring for that. So, Ring will be able to deal us 1900. We won't get the draw. Maybe we should have just gone for the break on the other back row to prevent something like that from happening. But I still feel like we're in a really good spot. And so this is ultimately okay. Our opponent's just going to switch that token in defense, bring out the Warrior Lady, attack over one of our other tokens, set 1, pass back to us. We draw Forceful here, so we'll be able to Forceful the remaining card from hand to deck. It's a creature swap, so that won't really be good against us with our tokens here. They're going to attack into another one of our tokens, pass to us. We're not Raigeki breaking the Warrior Lady yet because we do want one of our tokens online, but we already have that token online right now. We only really need to break the Warrior Lady next turn, I think. But we draw a Ring, so now we don't even need to do that. We'll set the Ring, pass back to our opponent. They're going to attack in to our token. We've got the ring for that, so we'll be able to ring the Warrior Lady. They're going to try bringing it back with a Call the Haunted, but we're going to Raigeki break the call. So that will send the Warrior Lady to grave. Now we're in a bit of a tough spot because we are very defenseless. But call will help us out a lot here. We're going to set the call, pass back to our opponent. They're going to bring out a pre-mat, so now they can bring back the Warrior Lady. That's all they've got in grave. And so they're going to do that, try attacking over our token, and that will go through. They'll pass back to us, and we use for Serpent, which is pretty good. We're going to call the Haunted back, this Air Knight Parshath here, attack over their token there, dealing 19. So now they're at 1900, so they're in a really, really risky spot. And we draw pre-mat. So because we draw pre-mat, I actually do a very interesting play here. I set the Serpent. And the reason I do this is because if they want to attack into it with Warrior Lady and then banish both, then I can get in for Parshath for game. And I just don't want them to banish the Parshath because I've got pre-mat to bring it back and potentially go for a lethal push soon. So I figure Serpent just gives them one more thing to worry about here. They go for Exiled, so I figured that they're probably going to exile our set, but instead they exiled the Parshath, which is very interesting. And I see why, because they've got the Knock there. So Knock will indeed banish the Serpent, which is unfortunate for us. But we do still have pre-mat to bring back the Parshath, get another draw, do things like that. But Breaker actually will be the end of the game here. We can break their pre-mat, go for a pre-mat of our own, bring back the Parshath, and that will be the end of the game there. So very, very good game there. And I think it really does show off the strength of Go Control and the strength of a more controlling deck like this. Because we didn't really have to make the most aggressive pushes there, but we were able to control the game state anyways. But this is a really, really good opening hand for us. We did bring in the Nox this time. I think I might have brought out the hand reps to bring in the Nox. Not sure if that's correct. I think it's still pretty good. I think maybe I should have brought out the swaps instead, because we do know that they're on things like Scapegoat. So, and swap plays really badly into Scapegoat. Opponent's going to go for Mirage here, and they'll be able to draw 3 off that, which is quite unfortunate for us. But we can sort of get aggressive here. We're going to go for a knock on the set. It is a DD Warrior Lady. We'll bring out a Tribe here, attack in for 16. That will indeed connect. And then main 2, we're going to pitch the Thunder Dragon, add 2 Thunder Dragons from deck to hand. We didn't want to do this originally because we wanted to preserve as much information as possible there. We're going to set a call, pass back to our opponent. And they are going to discard off the Mirage, so we pick 2 for them to keep. And they send a Wang Hu, a Swap, and a Faith here. So good to know that they are on the Wang Hu's there. They're going to bring out an Exiled, pop the Tribe, and then they're going to draw another 3 off Mirage here. So we've got call to bring back the Tribe if we want to, but we're going to go for the pre-mat first, just so we can use the call potentially as a Battle Strike to bring back the Tribe if they pop it, or the Thunder Dragon if we want to go for more damage. And we do indeed want to go for more damage here, because bring back the Thunder Dragon actually puts them on a clock. So now if they don't have any way to deal with this board or stop our attacks, next turn we do just win the game. We're going to set a Faith here as well. And then they're going to go for a Scapegoat in end phase. So they're playing around the Tribe discard, but this is a bit worrying because it means that they probably have like a meta or something like that to deal with our cards here. So they're going to discard 3 again, and we hit 3 other good ones here, Reaper, Meta, and Faith. I'm very glad we hit the Meta, because now they can't go into Thousand Eyes with that. They're going to go for a enemy controller here. Very interesting tech card that is in this format if people do want to experiment with it. They're going to use the Tribute and Take effect, so they're going to take our Thunder Dragon. We get back the Knock with the Faith there. I figured Knock was good enough to get back, which is why I set the Faith. But also I set the Faith in case they destroyed the Tribe. That I wanted to bring back the pre-mat with the Faith. But our opponent ordered this correctly, so that way we couldn't bring back the Tribe with the pre-mat. But yeah, they're going to smash the Tribe there, and then go to end phase, giving us back the Thunder Dragon. We draw a break, which is pretty good. Opponent's going to draw 3, and we are going to just attack over one of those tokens there. We're going to then set the Raigeki break here, pass back to our opponent. And they're going to pitch 3 again. Man, they're getting unlucky with that Mirage there. This is why I think like Raigeki Break is so good in this deck, because you can pair it with like Mirage to pop the Mirage, things like that. I think Mirage is honestly awkward in decks that aren't playing triple Raigeki Break and an MST. Or just other ways to deal with the Mirage, because Emergency Provisions can be used to get rid of the Mirage, but Emergency Provisions is really bad in pretty much every other case. So yeah, I think Mirage is a very interesting card in this format. So our opponent's going to set 2, draw 4 off this Mirage. They're getting really unlucky with the draws, though. And we're going to go for the upstart. This does give them 1,000 more life points. So, we don't quite have the same clock on them as before, but I still think it's worth doing. We're going to set this spy here to get another spy out from deck. And if they've got TT, they've got TT for that. But they'll have to use it on the spy summon. And then we could potentially, get another monster out on field if we don't. If we do draw into another monster. But we hit some really good hits out of their Mirage. We send a BLS, which is a very scary card. So glad to see that gone. We also hit Ace Daku there. They're going to go for change on our spy. Looks like they're not playing a spy, but this still does deprive us of getting a spy out. So they're going to trigger the Mirage, draw 4. And now we have a very interesting line of play here. So we're going to go for knock on the set just to see what it is. It is ATD Warrior Lady there. And we're going to think about exactly what to do here. We are going to ultimately decide to go for the DMOC here. Bring back the pre-mat. This does play heavily into a TT if they've got it. But if they don't got it, then we can potentially go for lethal damage here. And they might just be setting back row to sort of get it out of the hand for Mirage. So I'm going to go for pre-mat here. Bring back the tribe. And I am going to use the prio here. Our opponent just shotguns the Book of Moon before I can actually say prio. But so, I don't know. I'm not sure if that was worth doing. I think they should have saved Book for the battle phase there. Because you can use an effect with priority, and addition effect with priority after it's summoned. It doesn't have to be a normal summon. It can be a special summon off of something like Premat. So we are indeed able to use Prio here to pop the token. And this is actually really good for us because now our tribe just survives. And our opponent does have another scapegoat, so I get why they did this. Because, like, our tribe could pop the other tokens here that they'd have, after the battle phase. So I get why they did that. But, ultimately, I think they probably should have just waited on the book. But it doesn't really matter here too much. Main 2, we're not going to actually do anything. We don't want to play TT because our board is already really well set up. And our opponent finally draws the MST. So they are able to out their Mirage, which is kind of worrying for us. They go for Pot as well. So they're getting a lot of cards here. They've only got 10 cards left in deck, so it's not the worst thing in the world. They go for Painful Choice here, sending back our Thunder Dragon, which is kind of rough for us. We kind of wanted that Thunder Dragon hand to pitch off break. Also, now Thunder Dragon is a dead draw for us because we've already gone through the other Thunder Dragons. So kind of unfortunate. Our opponent goes for a Compy here. We could chain break here just to pop one of their tokens, prevent them from ripping the card out of hand. But either way, they're ripping a card out of our hand. And I kind of want to use break for better things. So it is kind of unfortunate because, we lose our TT. Our break isn't online for the rest of the turn. So whatever they want to do, they can just do. They're going to go for creature swap here. And we're just going to give them the tribe because they can't actually flip them the tribe this turn because creature swap says that the monsters cannot change battle position for the rest of the turn. So we'll just give them the tribe. They go for scientist here. Scientist will be able to clear the DMOC here, bringing out 1,009 restrict. And they're just going to set one pass back to us. We draw a Gatekeeper Spy. We could just summon out the spy attack over the scientist there, dealing them 900. But I feel like it's fine just setting the spy. If they want to really deal with this well, like they could flip up a tribe attack into it. They're taking 400 there, dropping them down to 1800. Also, they'd then pitch probably to pop the spellcaster, which then would pop the scientist as well. So I'm fine with that trade. If they do just go for a fusion monster to try and deal with this, then they've paid 1,000 life points, so I'm fine with that as well. So either way, I'm feeling very good about this play. Our opponent will go for the scientist there, paying 1,000 to bring out Fiend Skull. There's apparently some like DB issues here, so I just bring out the Fiend Skull in our extra deck and give it to them. If I didn't have Fiend Skull in our extra deck, then they could have just proxied it in with like a token or something. But they're going to attack into the set with Fiend Skull. That will negate flip effect monsters, so it will negate the spy there. And they're going to pitch a Serpent off the tribe, so not as big of a trade for them as it might have otherwise been. And that will get rid of the scientist and our spy. Still, I'm happy with that trade. Scientist is an annoying card, and they did still have life points to pay for it. But it also is probably good for our opponent because now, the scientist isn't there, like, vulnerable on their field. We draw Painful, which is actually a really good draw here. We're going to go for the Painful. And oftentimes off Painful, you see people send 5 cards that are really good. Here, actually, we've got a lot of cards that are really bad left in deck because we've used up 2 spies. We've used up 2 Thunder Dragons. We've got a spy and a Thunder Dragon rotting in our deck. Our opponent has a bunch of goat tokens, so like the swaps aren't necessarily the best. So we're going to think about exactly what to send here. We're actually going to send Serpent, Heavy Storm, MST, Thunder Dragon, and Spy. The reason I send these is because I want to sort of thin out the deck, and I want Serpent also like in rotation because Serpent's really good for us. We can set it each turn as a chump blocker to protect our life points here. Heavy is kind of awkward because, you know, we don't necessarily want to heavy the board. MST is kind of awkward because it doesn't really do much either. I think I probably should have sent double swap here instead. I mean, I guess with Serpent, I do have like a long-term way to clear the tokens, so I can go for that. I do have enough life points to support just summoning a Serpent, attacking over a token each turn. But I feel like it would have just been better than the swaps because the swaps are a bit awkward here. But yeah, our opponent will obviously give us the Serpent because Serpent, you know, we get back anyways, so they don't want to give us more cards here. And they're just going to pass back to, or we're going to pass back to them. We want the Serpent in hand to fuel the break here. And we don't necessarily need to go for the token play here because we don't care about creature swap because that's not in our hand right now. Opponent's going to go for pre-mat, and they're going to target the Parshath. We are going to think about this because we could potentially go for break later. And I figure, like, either way, we should be fine here because we know the last card in hand is Serpent. We don't know the back row. But if it's something like, you know, MST or something, they might use it on our back row in case it's a battle trap or something. And if it's solemn, this would get solemned anyways. So they're going to tech in to Parshath there. We've got the break. We're going to go for the Parshath. This was, I mean, it's not really a slight misplay, but in general, you probably want to target the premature burial instead of the monster because my body with the shield is around in this format. So they could potentially, you know, pay 15, but our opponent did not have 1,500 life points, so it wouldn't matter here. But our opponent's just going to clear the token with the tribe. We add back the Serpent here, and we do draw the swap, so it's a bit unfortunate there. I mean, MST and Heavy wouldn't necessarily have been better in this situation, but it is still kind of unfortunate that we do draw that. We're just going to bring out the Serpent, deal with one of the tokens. They're going to pitch the Serpent to pop our Serpent because, you know, they might as well. They're going to get in for 16 here. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw Ring, which actually will be game-winningly strong for us if we can pull it off. But our opponent might actually be on books. So what we're going to do, we're going to attack into a token, go for swap here, swap our Serpent with their tribe, then set this Ring, pass back to our opponent. So we don't just hard fire the Ring because, again, if they've got book, they can stop our lethal push here. They go for snatch. Now we can get value off the Ring even if they do have book because if they've got book to set down the tribe, then the snatch won't go through. So best case scenario, this wins us the game here. Worst case scenario, we still get the tribe on our side of the field. So our opponent does just have a TT, so that will just be the end of the game. And yeah, they had Fiber Jar as well. So Fiber Jar could have potentially reset the game state coming up here, but that wouldn't necessarily have been good for our opponent because they've got so few life points. But very, very, very intense games there, showing how fun the mirror is. And again, you know, I think that I'm still learning the deck. I'm not the best GOAT control player here in this format, so I definitely did miss playing game one. But I think the later games here were very good, and I don't really think I made too many major misplays in those. But let me know down in the comments if I did. We've also got one more match here to show off with this deck, so let's dive into that now. Okay, we had a game against Broccoli Rocket here, who I don't think I've actually featured on the channel before, but a pleasure to have a new person on. And yeah, we will win the Rock Paper Scissors, so we are going first. And this was actually, I just got this match through Format Library in the rated system there. So that's a great way to find games in this format if you want to play them. You can also join the YGO from Zero Discord server if you want to find matches as well. So that's a great place to find games. It's great that there are more and more ways to find games in the retro format. So that's always fun. Our opponent's going to go for a Rhoda here to get Dawn. And we've got the Scapegoat to block that off. We didn't want to set the Faith turn one because, you know, then we're sort of forced into using the Scapegoat there. And I figure Scapegoat plus swap in meta is like good enough for us. So our opponent's going to bring out a Dawn, attack in. We've got the goats, so we'll be able to get those goats into rotation there. And now our opponent is going to attack over one. They go for Comfy here, and they get to see our hand. And they're going to send the creature swap. So they'll get that out of the hand, which is kind of unfortunate because the best play we had here was switch the token to attack, swap with the Zalug, and then get in for a hand rip as well. But it's not the worst thing in the world. We still do have meta, so we can make Thousand Eyes, and that's pretty good too. We draw Upstart here, so we are just going to go for that first, just in case. We draw MST, so we could actually go for an MST here to pop the back row as well. We're going to go for a bit of a greedier play and just go for setting Serpent, then going into meta to bring out the Thousand Eyes. This preserves our tokens. However, into TT, it's really bad, and unfortunately, our opponent does have the TT there, so we do get punished for that play. I think we were very greedy there, so we probably deserve to be punished there. But yeah, our opponent's just going to bring out a DD Assailant here, attack in for 17, and then they're going to set one pass back to us. We draw a Forceful Sentry here, which is pretty good. We can get a peek at what they're working with in hand, and we see that they've got a Return, a Blade Knight, and a Saku here. I think of those, I'm most frightened of Blade Knight because I can just get more damage going. I mean, we got MST to deal with either Saku or Return, so I'm not too concerned about those long term. So I will just send back the Blade Knight here. It might not have been the best pick because they do have Rhodas in the deck, so Rhoda can just search that out. But I feel like it's ultimately fine. This prevents them from pressing a lot of damage here. They've got DD Warley, so they'll be able to attack into our set there. It's a Magician of Faith. We'll add back this meta here. And our opponent's just going to set 2, pass back to us. And we draw Change of Heart, so that is pretty good as well. We could just Change of Heart one of their monsters and go into like a Darkfire Dragon or something. But I don't really think that's worth it for us. Change of Hearting one of their monsters is kind of awkward as well, because if we want to attack into the other one, firstly, they've got Saku if they really want to stop our play there. But also, if they do let that go through and the monsters get banished, then they've got Return online. So that's kind of awkward for us. Oh, also, we forgot to add back Serpent last turn. That was a major misplay on my part. You always got to remember to add back the Serpent, but we're going to remember it now. We go for Serpent into meta, and then we're going to meta target the DD Assailant, and we're actually not going to attack here because we know about the Saku, we know about the Warrior Lady, so we're fine just sitting on this for a bit. We add back the Serpent again, and now we're going to set the break, set a Faith here, pass back to them. The reason why we set the Faith here is because if they ever clear the Thousand, we want another monster on field to get back a spell. They also do already know about the Faith, so I don't really think it's the worst thing in the world to do this. We also could be bluffing that's like Serpent set there. So I think it's ultimately fine. And also, we can always just pop our own Restrict with the Raigeki Break if we really have to. We draw Breaker as well, so we're going to go for Breaker. And we're going to try to pop one of the known back row, just trying to hit the Saku or the Return, just to know which one is left. We hit the Saku there, and this actually gives us a bit of a reason to think, because we could potentially just go, attack the Restrict into the Warrior Lady. Now that we know that that way is clear, if they banish, then we can attack the set with the Breaker. But ultimately, I choose not to. I just pass back to our opponent because I don't necessarily want to give them Return setup. And we draw another break, so I'm actually feeling good about that. So we're going to attack the Warrior Lady here. That will banish both. And they're going to take 2. We then go for the break in battle. We could have gone for break in standby to pop the set, to go for this play, but I wanted to give our opponent as little information as possible. This does make our follow-up break a little bit awkward, but I still think we're in a pretty good spot overall, so I don't think that this will come back to bite me too much. We're going to set the break here, pass back to our opponent. They're going to go for Upstart, so we do gain 1,000, which is pretty nice. They're going to go for Blade Knight here, set 1, attack into our Faith. We could potentially go for Raigeki Break on the Blade Knight because Faith getting back a spell is very powerful, and Blade Knight will negate it since it's the only monster they've got on their side of the field. But ultimately, I decided just to let that go. I figured we've got a good enough setup where it won't really matter, and we draw Demox, so that actually is really, really good for us. We're going to go for change on the Blade Knight here and just attack in for 3,200. We want to tribute off both for Dark Magician of Chaos next turn, so we don't necessarily want to commit our Serpent into this. We could also blind break or just break the Return that we know about. But I figure it's fine just sort of like getting in for 16 as opposed to 2,000 here. It's still a good enough clock. But, if we had gotten in for 2,000, then Democ could have just ended the game next turn if they didn't have any way to protect against it. So, there are arguments to doing both, but I'm just going to go for Democ here, add back a Change of Heart, and I figure this should give us enough aggressive pressure to be able to win the game soon. They're going to go for a Snatch. We're just going to MST that, and then they're going to think about exactly what to do here. They bring out a BLS, banishing a Light and a Dark, and we asked if they use priority, and they will need to use priority on the Democ there. And now in end phase, we're actually going to think about this, and we will indeed Raigeki Break their Return that we do know about. So this way, because they've got a really good Return setup otherwise, but this way, we're threatening lethal with Change of Heart plus BLS, and we can prevent them from using Return defensively. So I feel like this is pretty good. So they have to have a way to actually deal with the BLS here. And they will indeed let that go through. So we'll draw Tribe, which is really good as well. We've got a couple different options here. We could just go for Tribe, popping the BLS, get in for 16. But I think it's just better to go for change, threaten lethal here. If they've got a way to deal with it, they have to use it now, and they do indeed have the Saku for that. So main 2, we're going to think about exactly what to do, but we're just going to pass back to our opponent. We do know that they are on Zalooks, so that is a potential risk. but I feel like this is ultimately the best option. If they bring out a monster that's not Zlug, attack him, then we can bring out Tribe, pop it, and then get in for 16. Unfortunately, the Forceful will shuffle back the Tribe, so we won't be able to do that line of play, and they'll pass back to us. We draw Magician of Faith, which is really good. We're just going to set that, get a powerful spell back for later. They're just going to pass back to us. We draw Thunder Dragon, which is nice as well. We can tribute over the Faith for the Thunder Dragon. We actually get back the Forceful Sentry here, just in case they've got something good in hand. We could have also gotten back the Change of Heart. I think Change of Heart might have been the better play in case they set a monster here next turn. But I'm more worried about what they've got in hand than what they'll potentially set on field. So we go for Forceful here. We see they've got a Serpent, so we'll shuffle that back into the deck. And now we're just going to pitch the Thunder Dragon, add 2 more Thunder Dragons from deck to hand, and then we can tribute over our Faith for a Thunder Dragon here, get in for 16, and put them on a clock. They're going to Fire Mirage, but that won't quite do it for them. And we draw into Tribe, but this should just be the end of the game. We can bring out this Tribe without fear because we know the TT is gone. And if they've got Saku or Book, then this will still be lethal damage. And yeah, they just had Emergency Provisions here, and they'll still be lethal damage through that because that can just gain them 1,000. But this is 3,200 damage total. So very, very exciting game one, very back and forth. And I think that was a pretty good one. We're going to go into game 2 here. And our opponent does have the option to sort of side against this. We also side against their deck as well. We bring in things like Decree. We actually don't bring out the Raigeki Breaks for Book of Moon because I figure Raigeki Break is strong enough to be worth playing on its own, even if we are playing Decrees, which conflict with it. I think this was a major mistake. We should have brought in the books instead of the breaks, but we'll see if that actually comes back to bite us here. They go for Comfy, they rip the TT out of hand, which tells me that they probably have a way to deal with Decree, and they fire Mirage there, so Mirage will also draw them 2, which is pretty good for them. We're going to set the Faith, set Scapegoat, set a Decree, pass back to our opponent. If they want to attack into the Faith, we can go for Scapegoat there to at least get a spell engraved to get back with the Faith. And we also have Creature Swap to pair with it next turn. Opponent's going to go for a Rhoda here, getting a DD Warrior Lady. So they're going to bring that out, attack into our set here. It is indeed the Faith, so we're going to go for Scapegoat here on the attack deck. And get out those tokens. They're going to think about whether to actually keep attacking into our set or attack into one of our tokens, but they're going to attack into the set, so it is indeed the Magician Faith, so we'll be able to get back the Scapegoat there, and they'll pass back to us. We draw another Scapegoat, so that wasn't really the most necessary thing in the world, I guess, but we're going to go for a Creature Swap here, swap into the Warrior Lady, attack over their token, set another Scapegoat because they know about the Scapegoat in hand already, and we've got another Scapegoat to follow up for later. So if they do have like MST, hopefully they'll try and clear the Scapegoat as opposed to our Decree. And they are indeed going to go for Breaker on a new set. It is indeed the Scapegoat. They're going to go for Smashing on our DD Warrior Lady, attack over our token there, and then they're going to set one pass back to us. We draw into Meta, which is pretty good. We can meta one of our tokens away, which we will do. Bring out Thousand Eyes and suck up that Breaker if they'll let us. They are going to think about this, and we're going to say that we are using Prio because we are going to do that. They go for the TT there, but we've got the Decree for that, so we'll be able to fire that Decree, take over their Breaker, attack in for 16. We're going to pass back to them. They bring out a Tribe, so Tribe will be able to pop the Restrict there. And then they're going to pre-map back that Parshath that they discarded. So this is a very, very good turn for our opponent. They're going to attack over the token for 19, draw a card, attack directly for Tribe for 16 there. They'll pass back to us. We draw a Scapegoat, which is, it's good for defense at least. And we can clear the current board with Magical Scientist anyways. So we're going to pay 1,000, or actually we're going to pay 2,000 and bring out 2 Darkblade, the Dragon Knights here. We could have also just brought out a Restrict, sucked up the Parshath, attacked over to the Tribe, and that would have cleared both as well. I think this is a little bit more resilient. If they have a Chaos Monster, then we just would have probably lost the game, because we don't really have the tools to deal with that right now. So I think this is the better play. We'll attack into the Parshath first, because then that Parshath will be in graveyard for our second Darkblade attack. This is fueling the return, but we got Decree up, so, return won't be able to fire anyways, so I feel good about that. We're going to attack in with everything. We're going to set a Scapegoat, and then we'll pass back to our opponent. Our opponent is going to go for a Rhoda here, and they're going to bring out a Donzalug. Unfortunately, we can't really stop that because, even if we bring out the tokens, that will still hit over these scientists. So we lose another Scapegoat there. We draw Magician of Faith, which is really good. We'll set that, pass back to our opponent. They're going to go for Pot here, draw 2. And then they're going to think about exactly what to do, and they're just going to attack into our set. So we feel fine about this. We get back, or we're going to think about exactly what to get back. We get back a meta here. And, you could argue that I could then, I should have fired Scapegoat in the battle phase here to play around something like Wanghu coming down main 2. But honestly, I thought if they had Wanghu, they would have just summoned that first. But you know, I think I misplayed there. I probably should have just fired the goat when I had it. But even if I did fire the goat with the meta in hand, it wouldn't really matter, because if I had meta to bring out restrict, then that would have gotten popped by Wang Hu. So it wouldn't have been the best here. But yeah, we draw break, and that's going to be dead into the decree, so that'll just be the end of the game either way. If we had decided in books, then that would have given us a little bit of plays, because we could have booked down the Wang Hu on their turn, gone for goat to block off the Zulu attack, and then brought in a Thousand Eyes to sort of get things going there. So I think that, you know, if we had played a bit differently here, if we had put in books instead of breaks, we definitely would have been in a much better spot here. But as is, we made a bit of a mistake in the siding process there. So for game 3, we're going to play things a bit differently. We do bring in the books, and I think we keep in some of those decrees as well. I think we drop down to 2 decrees as opposed to 3 to make it a bit less bricky. We also bring out some of the swaps, I believe, because I think swap is a bit less good against a deck like this, but maybe swap would have been better. I just figured, like, you know, swapping for like a DD Warrior Lady that they can then banish is not really the best. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe the siding was a bit iffy here, but I think it's ultimately fine enough. But return decks are something that you should have a side deck plan for. But again, this was my first time playing the deck in this format, so I didn't really have the most solid plan for it. But we said a goat, we said a Book of Moon as well. They're going to go for a Rhoda here, grabbing a Zalug, and they're going to bring out the Zalug, try and get in. We've seen this play happen, I think, every game, but we've got the goats here. So we'll be able to bring out those, and they're going to attack into one of the tokens there. Clear that, set 2, pass back to us. We draw a ring, which is pretty good. We're just going to go meta and try and take control of that Zalug there. And that will indeed go through. We'll attack in for 14, and that will go through as well, so we feel pretty good about that. We're going to set ring, pass back to our opponent. We don't really have any spells in grave that are super powerful to bring back. We could set the Faith, though, anyways, just to get back like a meta or a goat, depending on what we want to do. I think this is ultimately fine. We draw another book, so we're just going to switch the restricted defense, set the Faith, pass back to our opponent. They bring out a knock to banish our Faith. That's unfortunate. We get other Faiths out of deck, and they banish the one Faith in their deck as well. So that's a bit scary. They're going to go for Breaker, trying to pop the ring. We will ring the Breaker there, so to deal with that. And then they'll just pass back to us. We draw Heavy Storm, which is kind of nice. We can heavy the entire back row, and then suck up their set. So we lose the book doing that, but we can fire the book. Well, it's a bit awkward. So actually, I'm going to sort of bide my time a little bit. I'm going to book the restrict, which then sets it down. Since it is in defense, we can then flip it up into attack, because it hasn't changed its battle position this turn by card effect. It's just been flipped down. So now we can sort of suck up their set, but they go for Solemn on the restrict. So that's kind of unfortunate for us, but it's not the worst thing in the world. We still have our 2 goat tokens here to sort of wall up a little bit. They go for an MST on the book, so now they will be able to attack over both of our tokens. We kind of wanted to keep those online in case we drew another meta, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way, and we do indeed draw the other meta, so that is unfortunate. Let's set this MST, pass back to them. They're just going to attack in directly for 3,200. There's a 2-turn clock on us, so next turn, if we don't have a way to deal with this, then that will just be the end of the game. Luckily, we draw Scientist, so we should actually be able to win the game here. We go for MST on their back row, we hit a Saku, and now we go for Scientist here, paying 1,000 to bring out a Darkblade the Dragon Knight, paying another 1,000 to bring out another Darkblade the Dragon Knight, paying another 1,000 to bring out Guiltia. The exact monster here didn't really matter, because we're just going to meta that away to bring out a Dark Bolter. So this should be the end of the game. We attack over the Assailant with the Darkblade the Dragon Knight, banishing 2. We attack over the Warrior Lady with the Darkblade the Dragon Knight. And yeah, our opponent sees writing on the wall. This will be 700 damage. Dark Bolter attacks him for 2,000. And that will be the end of the game. No Karibos in sight. People aren't really playing Karibo in this format for good reason. But yeah, that will be the end of the game there. So very exciting games. I think that this really did show the power of the goat control deck. Even though you don't have access to things like the Sook Loop in the same capacity, this deck is still really strong. And I could definitely see people playing Sook in these decks. Don't get me wrong, I just chose not to. But, you know, I think that this is a very powerful deck to try out. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it, because this format is fairly different from GOAT format. There are some key differences that do change the decks quite a bit, change the metagame quite a bit. So I do think that this deck is really fun to play in this format and just tinker with and try and experiment with exactly how you want to play it. But let me know what you think of my build of this deck down in the comments below. Also, let me know what you think of GOAT control in general in this format. Do you think that I'm overhyping it a little bit, or do you think that it's actually better than it is in GOAT format right now? Let me know down in the comments below. I always look forward to talking with you all as always. And also, if you like the video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot to me. Also, big shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. Signing up for that, you'll be shouted out in these videos. So big shout out to GMYFS, Rinswin, Porkchopcoon, and Brendan Donker. Your supports mean a lot to me, and it really motivates me to keep making these videos. But until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.